Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time for another client lesson update. And for those of you who enjoy these videos, please remember to click like down below. Help keep the likes higher than the dislikes. Because a lot of you have said this is your favorite segment. And I haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. Mainly because I didn't feel like I had anything specific to talk about. But I do right now. And actually I've had quite a few new intakes in the last month or so. So it's given me some newer topics. And a lot of times people have said silly stuff like, oh, how come nobody's dropped out? How come you never mention clients leaving? Well, because it's not anyone's business, really. But sure, I've had dropouts, right? Out of the entire time I've been coaching, I've had 5 to 6 people at least who have had to drop eventually. And in fact, last month I had 3 long-term clients drop. 2 of them were people who I've been working with at least 6 months. And it was due to their own financial constraints. Sometimes it's due to life constraints. Some people, their budget changes. But at least one of those 2 longer term guys, I mean, more than 6 months, had actually said he's really happy with where he is. He's happy with his results. He's reached his strength goals. He reached his physique goals, even though I'm not a physique coach. I am strength coaching. He's reached his goals, so he's happy with it. And we left on really, really good terms. And in fact, both of those 2 original guys, I've always told them they're free to come back. They were both really, really good clients, and they're free to come back at any time. I'll always make a place for them. But as far as how many I have right now, I have 16 clients. People have always said, why don't you talk about that? Well, because I didn't want people to know before. But I think at this point, it's fine. I don't have a problem with saying that I have 16 clients who are currently on the roster paying everything else. Some of them are shorter term, some of them are longer term. And I get clients who come to me and say, hey, I only want to try a month or 2 and see how this works, or I only want 3 months of coaching, or I want 6 months of coaching. So that's fine. And in fact, some people are going to come in and say, hey, do you have slots? I don't have any slots for this month. I can only handle so many new people. I'll probably be willing to take up to 3 or 4 new people in March. So if you guys are wanting to do that, several people have already kind of suggested they might want to send me stuff by then. Get it all together, send it over. I'll look at it and we'll see if you're a good fit. But as far as clients go, one of the things, the trends that I've noticed, and out of my newer people, within the last month, I have at least 2 guys with this issue. Sometimes this is corrected fairly quickly, and I see a lot of times I see guys who have complete lack of hamstring mobility. And you'll see the same thing in the comments. A lot of people say, well, I can't do this exercise because my hamstrings are tight. And tight hamstrings are fixable. Normally, I would say to people, look, a lot of mobility stuff is not fixable, but if your hamstrings are tight, and it's usually accompanied by knees that hurt, that's fixable. And the easiest way for me to test that is to have you do a good morning. And a person who has almost no range of motion on a good morning, when they film it, that's a dead giveaway that there's an issue. Now, it could be generally their sedentary lifestyle. It could be having a desk job all day. It could be not giving attention to your posterior chain in your training. And a lot of times when we see this, what's one of the things we notice early on? Guys whose deadlift is not massively heavier than their squat who've been training for 6 months or a year or whatever. Usually guys is still with weak lower bodies because they haven't given them full attention. And let's say you have someone whose deadlift is only 20 pounds heavier than their squat. And they're not an ultra advanced lifter. Because again, we've covered that in the past. Right? We know that from the past, that the more years you train, the closer the gap gets between the two. The more muscle you gain at something like 5 years, 8 years of training, things like that, the gap closes between the two over time. And especially as body weight goes up. And for fatter people, the gap will definitely close and even surpass. Really fat guys tend to squat more than they deadlift oftentimes. But that's for a whole nother reason. But guys who are not advanced lifters, who, let's say they squat 200, deadlift 230, okay? We know there's a major posterior chain problem right there. Massive posterior chain problem. Usually accompanied by a lack of range of motion in the hamstrings. Oftentimes guys who complain of knee pain. These things tend to go all together. Like it's a common theme that I've seen in some newer intakes. How do we fix it? You fix it with good mornings. Now, people say, well, what do you mean? If you can't do the range of motion on the exercise, how does doing the exercise fix it? Because when you force people to learn the lift correctly, the way that I demonstrated in my Good Morning tutorial, and they start going as deep as they can and film it every session, even with an empty barbell. Because I get guys like that their posterior chain and hamstrings are so weak that I don't have them put any weight on the bar, just a 45-pound bar, and do high reps with it. And as they film it, it gets lower and lower and lower. It actually is an easy solution to this problem. Now, could that person also possibly do some additional supplemental hamstring work? Should they consider maybe some hamstring curls? Maybe, especially if you have one that can put you in a stretch type position. You bet. Good Morning will fix this, and it's an easy way to fix it. And what you do, and some of these people, I mean, it's funny because I've had a couple of them, actually two of them, they're embarrassed when they send me their first video of the Good Morning. It's like, wow, I can't believe how bad my range of motion is. They're like, I'm struggling to even get to 45 degrees with an empty bar. I mean, these are people who've been trying to squat and deadlift, right? Sometimes these are guys who are squatting 225 plus already. They can't Good Morning an empty bar for a full range of motion. It's like literally 50%. But do you know what happens? As you make them do it and make them pause and stretch at the bottom, every single workout, it gets deeper. It gets deeper. We're putting a weighted stretch on a movement in a dynamic environment. Hey, static stretching doesn't particularly work. But in this case, we're dealing with a muscle that is abnormally tight to the point to where movement has been impaired. We have a major muscle imbalance, and it's not just flexibility, it's a lack of strength. It is weak, untrained hamstrings. Okay, that's your cause here. Now, when you have weak, untrained hamstrings, what else are you subject to? Knee pain. Also subject to low back pain. Right? You get hurt easier. You do not want weak hamstrings. And I don't care what your training goals are. I don't care if you say, well, I just want to look good. Well, you're not going to look good or feel good running around with a damaged back. You're not going to look good or feel good because you hurt your knee playing a pickup game of basketball, or when you're out at the beach playing some volleyball and you jump one time. You're trying to look good for the girls, for the guys who are only aesthetics. And you have weak hamstrings and you damage your knee jumping playing volleyball. Okay? That's not a fun situation to be in. Same thing, I get guys who tell me I can't do a barbell row. Well, if you can't correctly do a barbell row, a pendlay row like I demonstrated in that video, because of your hamstrings, you guys are like, well, I hurt my knee. Well, learn to set the exercise up correctly, first of all. And if you can't get into position, and it's probably because of your weak, tight hamstrings, you need to fix your hamstrings. Okay, this will carry over into other things. Having a weakness like that will carry over into your ability to do a barbell row. Right? The barbell row is one of the best exercises for developing your whole back. And I don't just mean the lats, because again, chin-ups and pull-ups are great for lats, but they won't build the whole upper back. The row will. Like you're shortchanging your ability to do some of these basic exercises. Okay? Because you have weak hamstrings. You're predisposing yourself to knee injuries. Predisposing yourself to back injuries. And I don't just mean in the gym. I'm not talking about, oh, you're going to hurt yourself when you squat or deadlift. I mean, you're going to hurt yourself in life. Because that's the problem we have. When people work out and they think of themselves as fit, they try to show off and do things that a fit person should be able to do. And if you have no mobility or strength in your hamstrings, you're not a fit person. And what do you think is going to happen when you attempt to act like a fit or athletic person? What do you think is going to happen? You get hurt. You get hurt playing a game of volleyball. You get hurt running over and picking up something too quickly. You get hurt when you try to show off and carry all the groceries in at one time and you twist and pick it up the wrong way. You pull something because you're not in shape. And that's what guys forget. It's the difference between looking good and actually being in shape. And the hamstring one will get you. But we see it, and it's actually completely fixable. It's fixable with Good Mornings. And like with everything else, I always say, it doesn't matter how far you think you're going. It doesn't matter what you think a row looks like. It doesn't matter how deep you think you're going on a movement. Film yourself. Okay? Don't just assume that that's the case. Film yourself and look at it. And a lot of times once people film themselves and they see what they're actually doing, it's very different from what they perceive. It's very different. But for me, I look at form check videos 7 days a week because every one of my clients are required to film their lifts. I only have one of my long-term guys isn't very compliant with filming his lifts. You know who you are. He films about a fifth of the lifts that I require him to film. But he's making gains, making progress. But, you know, that aside, my people are required to film their lifts. So with 16 clients, I am looking at lifting footage 7 days a week. Like I wake up in the morning and I'm looking at lifting footage in my inbox. Okay, it's just how it goes. So I'm used to seeing this stuff all the time. And I think a lot of you out there, you would be really surprised when you start filming yourself what'll come out. And sometimes your weaknesses, such as the hamstring thing or anything else, it's blaringly obvious as soon as you start filming your lifts. Right? These things come out. They become visible. All right, guys. Well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.